Do you remember the first time you heard the bass line of Billie Jean explode on the radio? Or the shock when Michael Jackson's face transformed into a werewolf in the Thriller music video? What few people know is that behind these eternal seconds, there exists a story of blood, sweat, and genius. A sequence of dangerous bets, studio fights, lost tapes, and decisions that almost buried the record before it even hit the shelves. Thriller didn't become just the best-selling album of all time by accident. It was manufactured like a diamond, polished in every microsecond, with perfectionism that was almost pathological, and production tricks that still baffle sound engineers 4 decades later. To achieve this feat, Michael Jackson recorded until he was hoarse. Quincy Jones hired rival musicians to generate competitive tension, and Epic Records bet the budget of 3 albums on just one. In this video, you're going to discover why Beat It almost didn't make the record, and who saved the track in the final minutes. How Quincy Jones's team used fried chicken to keep musicians in the studio until sunrise. The secrets behind the sound of Billie Jean, a phantom noise on the left channel that only reveals itself on vinyl. The fight that almost dissolved the Michael-Quincy partnership during final mixing. And the question that lingers to this day, would Thriller have been the same without Eddie Van Halen's solo? Prepare yourself to return to 1982, enter Westlake Studios, navigate cables, 2-inch tape reels, and stacks of cold pizza boxes, and witness how the album was born that redefined pop, broke racial barriers on MTV, and still sells over 100,000 copies per year. This is the creative autopsy of Thriller. The secrets of how the best-selling record in history was really made. The pressure after Off the Wall. When Off the Wall came out in 1979, it sold nearly 8 million copies, a massive success. But Michael felt it was insufficient. He wanted Album of the Year awards and felt snubbed by the Grammys. He swore that the next project would be impossible to ignore. Quincy Jones bought into the fight. If we're going to make history, we'll have to reinvent the sound of pop. The plan: each track should sound like its own #1 single. No filler. The War Room in Encino. At the Jackson home in Encino, Michael set up a demo studio with a cassette tape recorder. He slept with the microphone plugged in, singing ideas in the middle of the night. Billie Jean was born during a drive on a dark road. Michael heard the groove in his head, pulled over, and sang the bass line into a tiny tape. When he got home, he recorded vocals and beatbox. Quincy heard the demo and said, "There's gold here, but we're going to need dynamite to clear away the dirt." Guest composers, rivals, and espionage. To increase creative tension, Quincy brought in Rod Temperton of Rock With You, Steve Porcaro of Toto, James Ingram, and even Paul McCartney. Each one competed for space. Rod wrote Thriller, originally called Starlight. Michael thought the chorus was weak. Temperton rewrote it during an all-nighter and arrived with the title that changed everything. He also had the idea to call horror film actor Vincent Price for the eerie rap. Natural selection of songs. Almost 30 demos were considered. Quincy Jones applied the 100% rule. If a song didn't have a chance to be a worldwide single, it was out. The final list was brutally short. Wanna Be Startin' Something, Billie Jean, Beat It, Human Nature, PYT, The Girl Is Mine, Thriller, and Baby Be Mine. It was an insane bet, just 9 tracks, but each one carried enough firepower to explode on the radio. Westlake Audio. The headquarters. The studio in Hollywood became a residence. Quincy separated 2 rooms. Room A for rhythm tracks, Room B for vocals and overdubs. Lee Badalamenti, assistant engineer, remembers, "The energy was so intense that the walls vibrated. We had to turn off the air conditioning so it wouldn't leak into the microphone and then wipe the sweat off the console." The obsession with drum sound. Billie Jean required 91 takes of just the kick drum. Bruce Swedian aligned 2 microphones on the speaker cone, isolated the rest of the band, and recorded on virgin tape, never reused, to reduce hiss. Then he spliced 2 identical tapes together to add headroom. Result? A bass that makes vinyl needles skip if the system isn't calibrated properly. The solo that ignited, Beat It. Quincy wanted a rock track to break genre barriers. They secretly hired Eddie Van Halen, with a fake name in the studio schedule to throw off paparazzi. Eddie arrived, heard the bass, rearranged 2 measures, and recorded 3 solos. They chose the first, recorded in a double take with a Marshall amplifier turned up, mic'd inside a hallway to generate natural reverb. The high volume blew out a speaker, a noise that survives in the final mix. Vocals, layers, and invisible sounds. Michael recorded his vocals alone, lights off, dancing in the dark. He'd do up to 8 harmonies per phrase. Then he'd stack groans, finger snaps, and processed breaths with EMT 140 plate reverb. Some effects were left so low that they only show up on high-resolution headphones. Examples: a ghostly hee-hee in Human Nature at 2:51 and an inverted laugh before the final chorus of PYT, near Fatal Conflicts. Michael wanted the Billie Jean mix even more minimal. Quincy thought it needed more brightness. They debated 91 versions. In version 2, Michael spilled coffee on the console. In version 57, Quincy almost canceled the album. Bruce Swedian made a peace agreement. Final version, a body of 79 plus vocal of 67 plus drums of 2. It became the standard we know today. The mixing marathon. It took 9 weeks of mixing, 18 hours a day. The original Thriller tape almost got destroyed when a reel jammed. Bruce saved the section by splicing it with tape and praying there'd be no dropouts. Each mix went through a test called the car check. Quincy would take the tape to the parking lot and listen in an old Toyota. If the bass didn't vibrate the rearview mirror, everything started over. The secret of the final master. On November 8, 1982, the masters were cut at Precision Studios. Quincy asked engineer Bernie Grundman to make the vinyl louder than any previous record without distorting. Grundman used a trick: multi-band manual compression in real time, adjusting the fader as the lathe cut the acetate. Result: Thriller jumped on jukeboxes and sounded more alive than the competition. Marketing. Make or Break Epic planned to sell 2 million. That would already be a profit. Michael fought to finance music videos worthy of cinema. He put his own money toward filming Billie Jean. When MTV refused to air it because it wasn't rock, CBS President Walter Yetnikoff threatened, "If you don't air this, you won't get any other artist from this label." MTV gave in. The rest is history. The video that changed everything. Thriller, directed by John Landis, cost $500,000, the most expensive music video of its time. To finance it, they created a behind-the-scenes documentary and sold it as a VHS tape, inventing the home video musical. The video premiered on December 2, 1983, and multiplied weekly album sales by 10. Thriller returned to the number 1 a year after its initial release, something unprecedented. Numbers and legacy. 110 million copies sold, conservative estimate. 8 Grammy Awards in 1984, an absolute record. First album to have 7 top 10 singles in the U.S. Broke MTV's racial barrier and paved the way for 80s pop. Every musician involved received points in royalties that generate dividends to this day. Myths and post-release truths. Thriller almost had the title Midnight Man, true. Vincent Price's final laugh was recorded in a single take. True. Paul McCartney refused to sing on Thriller because he thought the lyrics were too dark. False. Paul wasn't even invited for that track. There are complete unreleased tracks from the project. True. Carousel and Got the Hots only appeared in reissues. Legacy. 40 years later, Thriller remains a production reference point. Crisp timbres, lean arrangements, colossal choruses. Every detail, and from tape hiss to synchronized hand claps, is studied in audio universities. And perhaps this is the greatest secret. There is no invisible magic, only talent, discipline, and an obsession with excellence that bordered on insanity.